What's up? Let me lower this music a little bit. So I was revisiting, I spent some time writing these articles when I decided that I wanted to dive into health and wellness. And it's been somewhat of a challenge to me because music for me is like everything. Music has been so peace. How are you? Peace to you. Music to me has been so intrinsic. And I remember, I was dating somebody. I met this comedian when I had an internship in New York some time ago, and it was at a record label. And I said, if I ever took an office job, which to me just sounded like unbearable, especially growing up, as a child, my mother had a office job. She worked for the government. She was a supervisor for the state of Connecticut, and just the moaning and groaning on a day-to-day basis from that job. I said, this is something that I never wanted. But I said, if I ever had an office job, I would only do music work. I would only be writing about music. I only wanted to work have an executive position or have a desk job if it was going to be about music. I wanted to write about music. I wanted to interview musicians, just be engulfed in music. I said that's the only office job I would ever have. And so it was really an amazing experience. I talk about this all the time. It's been years since I interned for Sanctuary Records. And it was a brief internship, but it was so significant to me that it was something that left such an imprint in my mind of the possibilities of life and just being around people who actually loved what they did and being around musicians who loved what they did. So music has always been top for me. And I remember this summer, I ended up meeting this comedian. I dated this comedian who, some might categorize him as bipolar. I'm not really big on these psych terms or whatever. But, oftentimes artists, and comedy is art, have this dark side. And if they don't find constructive ways to channel that dark side, it can kind of be like their very haunting shadow. And so we all have it. All art. I think everybody, probably every human being has a shadow or a dark side. But artists, we found a way kind of more to channel it in a way that's more constructive and productive. It could be through writing songs, dance, whatever. But comedians especially, I say, honestly, out of all of the arts, I would say that I tip my hat the most to comedians because it's very, very challenging work to make people laugh consistently. I think that they might have the hardest job. So he was a comedian, and we had a lot of very fun experiences. He took me on set to some of his gigs and just, waiting for him behind stage, kind of seeing how the whole thing worked. But he had this very dark side. And I remember one day, because when you're in a relationship, you have to deal with that other side. It's not all the glitz and the glam and the fun and the excitement. You have to also deal with some things that person has not dealt with themselves. So he was having a breakdown. And this man was probably 6'4", 6'5". And all his friends kind of pulled me aside at one point or another and were like, I'm not gonna say his name because people may know who he is, but they kind of broke it down to me. It's like, so-and-so's got a dark side, he's got some things going on. And he might have had a little bit too much to drink, and he breaks down, starts crying. And I'll never forget this conversation. He was talking about music and how important music was to him, and he said he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for music. He said he would have taken his life a long time ago. And how it was certain songs. He was really more into rock. And it was certain songs that helped save his life. He would have jumped off the ledge. He would have taken his own life if it wasn't for music. And just hearing him crying and pouring his heart out about how powerful music was, I became more confident, and it reassured me that this was part of what I had to do, you know. And this is the reason why I have such a deep respect for musicians and artists, because of the power of music and the power to heal through music and the power to tell somebody's story through music, you know. And so for me, it was like, okay, I got this music dream, but I have this deep interest in culinary arts, and I have this deep interest, this profound interest in healing and healing modalities and things like that. How can I navigate two, you know? Because it was getting to a point where I was getting these practical talks from family members of, okay, well, are you going to be a starving artist? Is this what you're going to do for the rest of your life? How are you going to be able to pay your bills? How are you going to be able to, you know, how are you planning on monetizing this whole thing? And it was like this daunting conversation that I never wanted to have, because I just want to do music. That's all I want to do. I don't care about all that stuff. I don't care. I just care about experiences. And I just care about relationships and bonds and being able to tell people stories. All I want to do is sing and dance and play and write, and that's it. All of that other stuff, that's not, I never felt like that was my lane. I never cared about it that much. I just never cared about it. And for whatever reason, the universe has always had my back to allow me to be able to create and allow me to still be able to survive. And so I feel like that's a message from my creator to say, keep doing it. But revisiting this conversation of love and relationships and broken people, I know that a lot of my songs have come from these places, have come from past relationships. There was even a point in my life that I felt like I was attracting bad relationships just to be able to write great songs, because the songs were just endless through the heartbreak, just writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And I'm like, I don't want to like only create like sad love songs. Like, I don't want that to be my niche, you know. Like, you know, certain artists, you can put them on and it's like, oh man, here we go. You know, because that's their niche. They got sad love songs they got songs about heartbreak for days, in dysfunctional relationships for days. And I'm wondering if they were like me. Like, were you guys only attracting like assholes just to be able to write? Were you going Taylor Swift? Were you using these men just to be able to write these songs? And so, you know, I was thinking about love, and I had a relationship. It was a brief relationship, and you know, sometimes I'm not like super open about the details. I speak more generally, but I think that this story might be able to help some people. So it was a brief relationship, but it was one of those things that apparently, you know, it was a relationship that I needed to go through. And I felt pretty quickly, and I felt pretty hard for this guy. And, you know, I'm not here to trash anybody, because we all got things that we got to go through. We all got things that we got to work on. And one thing I'll never do is talk about the intricacies of someone's life, but the more that he began to reveal himself and things that had occurred in his past, I began to more understand him and where he was coming from and the reason why he was the way he was. And you never really know what has happened in somebody's past. You know, we make all these assumptions and judgments about people, but we don't know. We don't know if someone was sexually abused as a child. We don't know what their relationship was like with their mother or their father. Oftentimes, it was their mother or their father that was their first heartbreak, their first neglect, their first abandonment. And then that's a whole conversation for another day, because it's usually the mother that gets blamed if it's a single mom situation, and everybody just kind of gives a pass to the absent father, which is so unfair. Nobody says, well, where's the dad? Why did the mother have to? Why does this individual feel a sense of neglect because their mother wasn't there? But why did the mother have to work 2-3 jobs in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Like in that Pac song, he said, when things went wrong, we blame mama. And nobody ever considers the fact that there was an absent parent, which is why the parent had to be overworked and underpaid and absent and, you know, not home all the time and all these things. But that's a conversation for another day. And so a lot of times the first heartbreak that we experience, a lot of times the first disappointment that we experience that sometimes we never recover from in life is from family members. people carry a lot of things with them. And we've gotten to a place in our society where men are often reluctant to talk about their shattered past because they don't want to appear to be weak. They don't want to appear to be soft or anything like that. So they carry these things with them. And we're encountering these men who are wounded, who are shattered, who are broken, just like us, but are not, don't feel as free to talk about these things like we are given more leeway to that. So we do have to apply a certain sense of compassion and understanding to these men. And that's the reason why when it comes to talking about your ex or it comes to talking about past relationships, you may not want to trash them because they helped you learn, they helped you learn about you. And so I went to Brooklyn and I wrote about this in my, I'll post the link below. I wrote an article about this on my health and wellness template. I told you guys I got savegracewellness.com. I bought the domain, but right now it's empty. And I'm using the template that I began on my blog on Wix to create this website. So some of the articles will be new. Some of the articles you will have access to right now if you guys want to check it out. This one I really poured my heart into. It's a long one. And I talked about love and soulmates. And I, referred to this experience of this man that I fell for hard, quickly, and how heartbreaking this experience was. But you can't take things so personally. It wasn't necessarily you. It was where they were in their evolution at that time, that you just happened to meet that person. Had you met them in a different time period, they might have been able to love you properly or reciprocate that love. But at that time, they just were not able to. And so you can't take these experiences so personally. And he told me that basically he used me to help him heal. He felt as if intrinsically I was a healer, and he used me to help him heal from the previous heartbreak that he had. And I felt used because I was going through a very tough time in my life. Also, my father was extremely ill before he passed away. And so I was really heartbroken on a number of levels. But it was very necessary because it was really the exact foundation that was required to allow me to heal. Had I just been carrying on my life, I would have just gone on as I was conducting myself. And this situation, this crisis, allowed me to stop and be like, I really need to take some time to focus on me and to heal my heart. So I went to Brooklyn, and this was out of some desperation was sprinkled in there because I was just so desperate to heal. I didn't want to feel pain anymore. I was just so hurt. And my dad and it was just horrible watching my dad get down to he was a skeletal. He couldn't use his legs. And there was a point where I went to go visit him, and I was dating this guy, and my dad didn't even recognize his daughter. The dementia had sunk in so deep that he didn't even recognize who I was, his baby girl. So I was carrying all of this stuff with me, all of this pain, all of this hurt, and the guy cheated on me, and I'm just feeling I was just feeling does anybody know what I'm going through? Does anybody get it? So I went up to New York, and I sought this center. It was a kind of like a healing center in Brooklyn. I forget the name, but I can get you guys the name. And I met a lady named Sister Kafunya, and I was referred to Sister Kafunya to be able to get a chakra balance. And there are people that have gifts that they can kind of read your energy, and we have these chakras from the crown chakra all the way down to the root chakra. And so people can see various blocks that you have within your chakras. And of course the heart chakra is right here. My heart chakra was all torn up, you know? And so I was able to begin this healing process with her assistance. And I met another individual who was amazing. And I had, sometimes you just feel something about somebody. And this man had just like a very like calming like energy. You could just tell he was kind of like in balance. And was very like, had a very like tranquil spirit. And just being around him was comforting. Have you ever met somebody where just being around them was just comforting to you? And so I remember having a conversation. We had a couple of different conversations, but I had a conversation with him. He goes by the name of Brother Divine, and he has a very divine type energy to him. And he was like, Kinza, you are different in the sense that when you love, your love is like, you love like you're all in. And he's like, and I'm not sure really if you're in tune with the world, but people don't love like that. Like, like people like kind of love with like reservations. Like people don't like give like all, like you give all. Like you love like, whoa, like when he was like taken aback by how hard I love. And he's like, that's really powerful. And what I gathered from that is like some men, like a lot of men aren't really like receptive to that because they're not used to that magnitude of love that you give. And his advice wasn't telling me not to love that hard. And I've gotten that advice before. Like I've gotten that advice from an older woman, like you love way too hard. I got the advice from an older woman that said, I never loved with my whole heart. She's like, because when you love with your whole heart, what do you have left after the relationship ends? But I knew that was coming from a place of scorn and coming from a place of heartbreak and coming from a place of, relationships that didn't work out the way that she wanted them to. And I didn't cling on to that advice because although it may sound logical to preserve, your heart, it's like, I don't want it if it's not all. I don't want a watered down love. Like, that's not what I seek. I don't want watered down love. I don't want like tainted love or like not pure love. If he's not all in, I need him all in. I need to be all in. That's the only type of experience that I want to have. Like, I'm that extreme. So, when I talked to Brother Divine, he said that I had a purpose, a specific assignment from our Creator, and I likely was not going to be able to meet my soulmate until I fulfilled that purpose. And I also want to kind of share that with you guys because as women, a lot of times we forget that we actually have a purpose. We kind of submit to, and don't get me wrong, you guys heard me talk about roles and tapping into your femininity and being a supporter and a nurturer to your soulmate and to your lover, and all of that still stands. But we do as women also have purposes, and we have to look at ourselves in the eyes of our Creator. The person that created you gave you an assignment. And that's regardless of if you're a woman or a man. And I don't know what your assignment is. Like I said, like one time, like Jesus's mother, her assignment may have just been to give birth to the Messiah. Like that could have been her work. Like you are here to give birth to the Messiah. You know what I'm saying? Like you as a mother, that could be your assignment. Because you don't know who it was that came from you, through you. You don't know who you birthed. You don't know if like this is like the next ruler or the next king or the next, you don't know. So your specific assignment, like don't trivialize that assignment. But I think that these assignments are really something that you have to pray for to know what it is that is your assignment. And I think, I don't know. I don't have all the answers. Like, because a part of me is like in an ideal world, the men are the protectors, the men are the providers, but I know that that's somewhat of a conditioning because we've kind of like relied on these conditions that have been imposed on us. I don't know, because I know that there have been warrior women in time. You know, there have been women who have had to put on the armor and go like, what's her name? Joan of Arc. Like there's like warrior women who have even put on armor and gone to fight on the front lines to protect the village or to protect the, whatever, the territory. Like women have been fighters. Harriet Tubman, I heard that she was willing to kill, she either killed one of her husbands or like was willing to kill one of her husbands if he got in the way of her work. Like she was that committed to freeing the people that she was like, you gotta go. Like if you are over there and you're not on code with what I have to do with my assignment from God to free the people, I don't care how much I love you, you gotta go. And so we have, as women, yes, we do have assignments. Like perhaps your assignment is to be the nurturer. If your counterpart, if your mate has this big role, if he's a king, and all he needs is serenity in his home, right? And he needs you to be in charge, to rule the home, to be the queen of the home and tend to the babies and make sure that the babies are well fed and they're clean and the home is a place of tranquility for him, a peace of mind for him, and you nurture him and you give him support. That could be your assignment. And don't trivialize that role. But we all have an assignment. And so what Brother Divine was telling me was like, you've got something you're here to do. And you may not realize that yet, and you may not know what it is yet. But don't walk in this world absent of the fact that you as a woman have an assignment. You are purposeful. And everything that happened along the way, relationships that didn't work out along the way, were, yes, largely your doing, but also preparation, whatever it was, whatever it is you needed to accrue, whether it was wisdom, whether you needed to break a little bit of your naivety as far as the world that we're actually in, and have some very like real experiences as far as how wounded people are. But as a woman, you have an assignment, you have a purpose. And so don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that you may, just because you were born with, you don't have a penis in between your legs and you're in a society that is about male domination and things like that. And we are not, I will never tell women we are not in opposition with our male counterparts. We are here to support them, nurture them, love them. This is a partnership. But don't forget that you have an assignment, that you have a purpose as a woman as well. Until next time, y'all, peace and love.